Hello everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks over here on That's Comical. And if you happen to be watching and it's a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well, July, the second half of 2024 is definitely off to a powerful start because, my goodness, when we had San Diego Comic-Con happen just about a week and a half ago, things happened. Lots of things happened, lots of announcements happened, and it definitely has changed the direction in where I personally thought I was going in regards to my comic book reading. To a certain extent, but not entirely. And that basically means I am still not intending to read anything beyond the Ultimate Universe and the small amount of titles that I'm reading on Marvel's end, but I am definitely not planning at this point in time to cut my reading in regards to DC, because Scott Snyder and Josh Williamson made the big announcement and announced the DC All-In Initiative, where they basically refer to it as not necessarily a reboot, but rather a great place for people to start, a starting point, a pivotal jumping on point. So if you have never read DC Comics in your life, now is the time to start. If you want to get back into DC Comics, now is the time to start, because it's a whole new bunch of writers that are going to be taking on certain titles while some are actually remaining, and I'm happy to say that in regards to most of the titles that I am reading in DC that are ongoing, most of the writers and artists are staying on, but also the fact that there is going to be a Ultimate Universe of DC's own, and that, of course, is their Absolute Universe that is going to be headed by Scott Snyder, and he is going to be writing Absolute Batman, and there's also some other very well-known people that are going to be writing these brand new titles, so I am definitely going to be giving these titles a try. We have Kelly Thompson writing Absolute Wonder Woman, we have Jason Aaron writing Absolute Superman, and I think one of my personal favorites was the announcement that later on in 2025, Jeff Lemire is going to be writing the Flash title of the Absolute Universe, and I am also quite intrigued and interested in seeing how Al Ewing is going to give us Absolute Green Lantern. But at the same time, that's only one half of the All-In Initiative, because we've got all the current DC titles going on. So we are going to have Mark Waid writing Action Comics for a little bit. Tom Taylor was announced he's going to be jumping on to Detective Comics. We also had the announcement that Jeff Lemire, Ram V, and Mark Waid were all going to be writing brand new titles of Justice League, Unlimited, JSA, and New Gods. So those are definitely titles that I am very much interested in. I gotta be honest with you, it's exciting. I really thought that things were going to change for DC, but now it looks like either they're going to increase in my comic book intake, or they're just going to stay as constant as they are. But in regards to things that I know that are not going to be stopping, it's definitely going to be the Energon universe, the Ghost Machine universe, and everything that's going on at Dynamite. That's definitely going to be sticking around. And I also was happy to hear that one of my current miniseries that I'm reading, Uncanny Valley, over at Boom Studios, which is written by Tony Fleeks, they announced at San Diego Comic-Con that Uncanny Valley is going to now be getting a second story arc. Pretty much probably either a maxi series, maybe even an ongoing series. We will see. But, you know, there was a lot of doom and gloom in regards to what was going on social media, because everybody said, you know what, it sounds exciting on the surface, but what's really going to be happening? You know something? I always like to give things that interest me a chance, and when I hear names like Jeff Lemire, Ram V, Scott Snyder, I get excited, and I want to see what's going on. So I will definitely be mostly all in for DC's All-In Initiative. I think I'm going to give every Absolute title their first arc. I will give that a try. But let's take a look at the numbers and see how things went in July. So it was my largest haul month this year, 57 books. But just as I said, because of DC's Absolute Power arc, DC is staying pretty much within the constant that they've been in all year with 14 books. Image is still pretty much at the top with 24 books. And Marvel is coming in last because the other conglomerate decided to pick itself up and continue to stay constant in July, but that's also because of the fact that Dynamite is just giving me so many things to be excited about. I just picked up Powerpuff Girls #1 by Kelly Thompson in July, and I definitely have things to say. It was fun, but I think what was also very exciting was the fact that over at Dark Horse, Mark Millar's continuation of Miller World started this month with Nemesis Rogues Gallery, and we have so many exciting titles coming out in the next couple of months from him. So then let's take a look at the percentages. So once again, over 40% of my inventory intake went to Image Comics, and just under 25% went to DC. And then we take a look at the graph, and now, as I said, it's going to start looking interesting, everybody, because look at what's going on here. Image is just pulling away, and it's been pulling away every single month as DC is managing to stay afloat, but Marvel is basically getting pounded into the ground. And let me be honest with you guys, I'm not reading Marvel Blood Hunt. I am not reading any of the From the Ashes X-Men titles, so my Marvel intake is down, and I think it's going to stay down for quite a while. Outside of the Ultimate titles, which I'm definitely enjoying, I don't see myself picking up any other Marvel titles outside of the Ultimates and Mini and Maxi series. I mean, I have a feeling that The Incredible Hulk might be coming to an end soon over with Philip Kennedy Johnson's run, but we do have Hulk 800 coming very soon, so I am excited to see where we're going to go with that. So how did I do in regards to my predictions for July of 2024? Well, everybody, I got a big fat goose egg. None of my predictions came true. But you know something? It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, because the most important thing is, will something great be there in its place? And when I saw what my top picks ended up being, they were definitely exciting to me, but also some of them were pretty big surprises, and I'll definitely go into that in just a second. So for the first week of July of 2024, I thought I was going to be giving it over to Image Comics and Kurt Busiek's new book, Free Agents #1. It was okay. I definitely think we have a world-building story to begin with, but I am definitely going to give this book a little bit more of a chance just because it's Kurt Busiek, and Kurt Busiek has yet to disappoint me with anything that he's written. But the one thing that I found out about this book, and spoiler alert, I hope this isn't the worst thing in the world to reveal, but I think this book might be tied into the Supermassive universe. I'm not sure, because they announced that Radiant Black is going to be making an appearance in the upcoming issues. If that is the case, I don't really know what to say. The Supermassive universe was something that I did start with. I was there on the ground floor. I read Radiant Black. I read Rogue Sun. I even read the entirety of No One. And the truth of the matter is, they started off great and didn't really manage to keep me hanging. So I'm just not sticking with these. But I'm still going to give Free Agents a little bit more of a shot. If the first story arc just doesn't end up where it wants to be for me, I am not going to continue reading it. But my actual pick for that week went to DC Comics and DC Absolute Power #1 of 4, the core story of the current saga that is going to lead us to the DC All-In Initiative and the Absolute Universe. Of course, this is written by Mark Waid and artwork by Dan Mora. This was a pretty powerful start. I mean, some people are giving this a mixed bag review so far, but I am trying to read the parts of the story outside of the core that are interesting to me, because a lot of people say the tie-ins are a mess, but this first issue was pretty solid. I really appreciated where this story is going, and I am very excited to see where it is going to go in the month of August. For the second week of July of 2024, I was planning to give it to Marvel Comics, The Ultimates issue #2. I thought it was a good story. It actually still ended up in my honorable mentions, but out of nowhere, I decided to pick up my one and only Blood Hunt book. I bought The Incredible Hulk Blood Hunt one-shot, and it, of course, was written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and the artwork was done by Danny Earls. Why did I pick this up? Because apparently this book really does not make you need to read Blood Hunt. This is more following the current Incredible Hulk story. It's just Blood Hunt decided to get in the way and give Hulk a roadblock in this issue while he's trying to fulfill his mission in his actual comic book. But this book was flat out fun. Hulk versus vampires, I'll take it. I had a blast with this book. Philip Kennedy Johnson gave me a good book, and if there was anything that I could say, even though I'm not interested in Blood Hunt, at least this specific tie-in was something that was worth reading. It was a fun issue, definitely a good part of the Incredible Hulk story arc, and I liked it. I'm really happy to say that. For the third week of July, I thought it was going to go to Dynamite Comics and be given to the Powerpuff Girls issue number 1 by Kelly Thompson. This book was a joy. It is exactly what you expected from a Powerpuff Girls comic. It felt like a television episode, and I love the fact that this seems to be what this book is going to be. It's going to be like those 30-minute cartoon episodes. At least that's what I'm hoping it is. And Kelly Thompson is someone I know who can write a very dark, deep story and then give me something as colorful and fun as this with a little bit of a dark tone to it, but still feel like a great Powerpuff Girls episode. I'm glad. It was very much enjoyable. But the only reason why it didn't get my number 1, this was my number 2 pick of that week. It ended up going to DC Comics, Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 29 by Mark Waid and Dan Mora, the last issue in the 5th story arc of this comic book. It just had a little extra heart. That's why I really loved this comic. This story arc was a little bit out of whack, but that's because of the fact that it featured creatures from the 5th dimension. Mixie and Batmite were there, along with a bunch of other 5th dimension surprises, but it came together finally in a great way, and I just absolutely loved how much heart was put into this final piece of this story. I was very happy with how it ended, and I am still very much excited to continue reading this. I mean, I'm reading a lot of comic books right now, and I think when it comes to ongoing series outside of Spawn and the Department of Truth, I think this is the other longest run that I am currently collecting right now in current comic book titles. So yeah, very much enjoyed this one. For the 4th week of July, keep in mind, everybody, this was a 5-week New Comic Book Day month. I thought I was going to be giving it over to DC's Black Label and James Tynion IV's return to his universe of The Nice House on the Lake with the first of 12 issues of The Nice House by the Sea. It was a little confusing at the beginning, but it made sense at the end, and let me just say, I am very excited for this next chapter because I love The Nice House on the Lake. But the top pick of the week went over to Image Comics, Feral issue number 5 by Tony Fleeks and beautiful artwork by Trish Forstner. Let me just say, guys, the last 2 pages of this book absolutely broke my heart. This is the end of the first story arc, and my goodness, you know, from a 5-issue miniseries of Stray Dogs to a hopeful 50 issues of Feral, that's what Tony Fleek said. He'd like us to go to at least 50 issues. This has just left me craving more. This first story arc was brilliant. If it wasn't for Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Feral would be my number 1 book of 2024, but I don't think anything is going to beat Beneath the Trees. But I am so excited to continue reading this story. I know that the 6th issue is going to be a standalone story, but this book is absolute chef's kiss, people. Feral is a must-read for any comic book fan. And for the last week of July of 2024, I was planning to give it over to Boom Studios and the final issue of Cullen Bunn's underrated masterpiece, Ghost Lore, issue number 12. Now that I have read this story as a whole, there is definitely rereadability here. I am so glad that I invested myself in this book, and I personally thought that it was very well done. Not that many people talked about it, and it's a crying shame, because it had a lot of good meat in this story, and it's definitely worth your time. But the reason why it didn't end up being my top pick is because I should have known this. James Tynion IV, in the end, would end up getting a top pick from me, and of course it was over at Image Comics, The Department of Truth, issue 24. This should have been my prediction. I have no idea why I gave Ghost Lore the benefit of the doubt. The Department of Truth was brilliant. This book, since issue number 1, has been absolutely brilliant. Even though it may not be the number 1 every single time it shows up, this has been a book worth talking about. This has been a book worth reading. The fact that we are now getting into things like the Kennedy assassination, and apparently the rest of the story arc is going to feature Marilyn Monroe. So excited to see how that's going to tie into this world. But it is a brilliant read, guys. This is definitely, I think, the strongest story arc to date. Check out the Department of Truth if you haven't. So that was how July went. How is August going to go? Well, besides the fact that it is going to be my wedding anniversary on the 21st of the month, and that, of course, is going to be a new comic book day, and then the following new comic book day will, in fact, be my birthday on August 28th. So I've got 2 great things to celebrate on new comic book day. Who'da thunk? So my prediction for the first week of August 2024 is going to go to DC Absolute Power issue number 2. I loved issue number 1 so much. There's some good stuff coming out that week, though. Please don't get me wrong. There's a brand new Matt Kindt book coming out over at Dark Horse, and there's also the continuations of books like Ain't No Grave and Wolverine Deep Cut, but I really think that DC Absolute Power, at least the core story, is going to continue to ride strong towards the end of this event. For the second week of August, there's nothing that's going to hold a candle to this unless something truly surprises me, but it's a new book from Dynamite based on one of my favorite cartoons of all time, Johnny Quest, issue number 1, written by Joe Casey. I read the Free Comic Book Day issue number 0, and I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait for this book to come out. The fact that I've been reading books from Dynamite like the Powerpuff Girls and Thundercats and Space Ghost, this is just an exciting time for Dynamite Comics, everybody. I mean, there are some people that say that the titles sound great, but the stories fall flat. Am I reading the same book? I don't know. But I keep hearing about other titles that they're going to be thinking about. They're planning on doing things like the Herculoids and Blue Falcon and Dynamite. I mean, holy cow, everybody. A DuckTales run, even. It's all going to depend on who's writing it, and every one of these books that I've been reading has a good writer attached, and I am not expecting anything less from Johnny Quest issue number 1. For the third week in August, there's some other really good books coming out. We're going to see the end of Green Lantern War Journal, the new issue number 4 from Dick Tracy over at Mad Cave, but I am going to give it over to a brand new miniseries that is coming out from Marvel Comics called Wolverine Revenge. Why? Well, it's because of who's writing it and who's doing the artwork. This is a book that is going to be written by Jonathan Hickman and illustrated by Greg Capullo. That's incredible. What a team up. Dying to see these worlds collide. And I am just excited to see a person like Jonathan Hickman take on a complex character like Wolverine. And I'm just excited for a wild ride, because Wolverine Deep Cut by Chris Claremont, the first issue was great, so add Wolverine Revenge to that. That's beautiful. And for the final week of August, New Comic Book Day, my birthday, there's a lot of cool things coming out that week, too. We've got issue 2 of Spawn Kills Every Spawn, we got a new Void Rivals, we've even got a brand new book from Marvel by Rob Liefeld. It is going to be his very last time he ever writes or draws Deadpool, called Deadpool Team Up. So I'm expecting that to be a fun book, and not to mention Mark Millar's second issue of Nemesis Rogues Gallery. But I am going to be giving it to a book that was on my radar at the beginning, and it's slowly creeping up to the top in regards to my favorite books of 2024. And that is over at Image Comics. Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok's sensation from the Ghost Machine universe, Rook Exodus number 5. This book started off a little bit slow because we were building a world here, but with issue number 3 and beyond, it has been exciting. And issue number 4 just blew my mind. Not just because the story is great, but the artwork from Jason Fabok is beautiful. And I am very excited to see where this story continues to go. And even though I still say that Redcoat is my favorite Ghost Machine book right now, I would not be surprised if Rook Exodus ends up being my favorite, because this just gets better and better with every single read, everybody. Every new book is a new adventure, and it's a treat. If you haven't started reading Rook Exodus, I highly recommend that you check it out. It is cool. Very, very cool. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks. Please let me know if I forgot anything in the comments below. I would like to know what some of your best reads for July of 2024 were, and I'm really curious to see what some of your anticipated reads for August of 2024 are going to be. But in the meantime, everybody, I will see you in the next one.